So it now begs the question, Ryan Wilson, what was that? And why did that happen with this guy? Where was the disconnect? Was this something that maybe you saw like teams get when there is drastic change, that sort of surge? Or is this a different team with that different quarterback?
You know what's funny, Joe, as someone who covers the draft at CBS Sports as well, if you told me that Andy Dalton was the first overall pick in last year's draft, that's how you would expect him to play.
Spinning it.
And right, and former second-round pick back in 2012, and 5 straight times you led the Bengals to the playoffs as a rookie and onward. But the takeaway for me is this. The ball came out on time. The ball came out accurately. There were no running around in the pocket. And we've talked all day today about young quarterbacks looking out of sorts just because the transition from college to the NFL is a steep transition. And he, to your point, Joe, was absolutely spinning it. I don't know if this is how it looked in practice over the last week, even going back to the summer. But Andy Dalton couldn't have been more excited about this opportunity. We heard him talk about this earlier in the week. And then he comes out and plays some of the best ball he's played since those Bengals days. I think it says something that a former Bengal and a former Steeler are lighting up this offense in Carolina after what you talked about being 18-plus games of sub-mediocrity. Coming into this game, they were converting 9.1% of their third downs, 42% today. Last time Andy Dalton played, he threw for 360. Tonight, 319 and 3 touchdowns. There's no going back to Bryce, barring injury.
Well, that becomes the question now. Not if or when you do go back to Bryce, but there is some reporting suggesting that his road has not come to an end in Carolina. So what that road looks like, that becomes the big question mark. Do the ends justify the means in your eyes? Whether it was David Tepper, Canales looking at the tape, whoever made this decision, they have to feel pretty justified in the decision that they did make.
If you watch last week's game that Bryce Young played, it was the worst game he's probably played in his life. And if you're not improving from 2023 to 2024 with Dave Canales, who has a track record of getting the most out of quarterbacks, Geno Smith, we know Baker Mayfield last year, Andy Dalton you can add to the list, although Andy Dalton's been a good quarterback for a long time. This makes all the sense in the world. However you got to this answer, it ends up being the right answer. So to answer your question, Bryce can be frustrated. Bryce can try to figure this out and get better, but there's no reason, if everyone's healthy, why you would put him back out there given what we saw today. They went on the road in a game, I don't know what the line was, but I'm sure they were not favorites, and they absolutely took it to a Raiders team that's coming off a huge win last week in Baltimore.
Well, if you have 1 foot in and 1 foot out, you're now left to develop a quarterback without game day repetition and still tell him you're going to get your chance. I don't know when that chance comes, but Andy Dalton certainly comporting himself well in his first go here in 2024.